but there's a primary one and then there's accenting ones, which we'll get into later. But the primary line of action is going to be that thing that indicates the general force of the character in their pose. Again, the best poses have motion in them. Another thing you want to do with your poses is that you do not want every pose to be the same volume. Think of the extremities or the extremeness of your pose in terms of volume, like music. If music is always loud and always the same tone, it hurts. We don't like it. We turn it off. We don't listen to it. What makes music appealing and interesting is the play back and forth between louder tones and softer tones, and the rhythms of faster and slower. The rhythm of faster and slower is a timing thing. Again, we'll get timing in a little bit, but the volume or the strength of what you're trying to say is important to try and vary that. In fact, it's a really good idea that for every scene that you plan, choose one pose which is the pose. It's the one that gets the entire thing. The whole thing hinges on that pose, and it's always bigger, more extreme, or more important than all the other ones. Dash said it best in The Incredibles: if everything is special, then nothing is special. So save your energy, save the extremeness of your line of action for those poses that are really key to getting the idea across. I mean, the ones that really, really, really nail it, and work everything in around it. What makes mountains beautiful is that there's always one that's taller than the other ones. And the smaller ones lead up, and they bring your eye up to the mountain. The Grand Tetons is great because these fantastic mountains just rise up out of the plain, and they just scream for you to look at them. And even so, the ones from the edge keep getting progressively higher and higher until you get to the one that's the tallest. And that's where our eyes go. And so when you're working on planning your poses, pick one, the one that's most important, and make that the one that you really put your energy into to communicate the story. The other ones are important as well. I mean, you don't want to slough off on them and be lazy, but you don't want every pose to be big. One of the weaknesses of one of my earlier animation tests is that I made all the poses too big. Here's that 10-second club piece from a while back where we had characters doing the line from So I Married an Axe Murder about hating the Colonel.
I hated the Colonel with his wee beady eyes and that smug look on his face. Oh, you're gonna buy my chicken. Oh!
See, one of the problems with this clip, even though it was fun to do and I really liked the character and there was I had fun doing it, I just got to admit. And it's entertaining and it's amusing, but one of the problems is that all the poses are just the same size. And so what happens is that everything becomes really loud and it's just like, stop. Give me one thing to look at. There is a point there where he kind of does come inside of himself, and that's fine, but even then, it could have been better. So you always got to try and find ways to make your stuff better. And one of the reasons why this is no longer on my reel is because it's just every pose is the same as far as the intensity of it. And that shows a lack of understanding on my part at the time. I'm much better than that now. Well, okay, maybe a little bit better. Okay, some days I forget completely. But still, it's a good thing to keep in mind. One of the things that you'll find very experienced animators will focus on when they're actually working up their poses and their plannings is they're going to look for ways to reverse or to build contrast in how their lines of action play together. Let's take a look at this one particular scene that I animated for Mickey's Twice Upon a Christmas. This scene right here is a cute little interaction between Mickey and Pluto after Mickey's found Pluto. And we'll see that there's a very strong line in Mickey, not super strong, but there's a definite left screen leaning. He's reaching out towards Pluto. He's got his hand on his chin, so there's a closeness there. And this is where he says, "I'm so glad you're home." And the next image, we see that he stepped back. It's all in the same scene, but he says, this is where he says, "Who's my pal?" Now, you'll notice if you go back and forth between them that there's a very strong reversal. If you take the line from the left foot of Mickey, screen right foot, on the first one and draw it up through his head, you'll see that there is a fairly decent screen left indication of his line of action. And then you take a look at the other one, and you'll see that that same line is that from the foot right up through the head is now a very strong screen right indication. And the hand, his right hand is generally still in the same position, but one is intimate and drawing in, the other one's presentational. And then when we go to the next part where he goes in, he says, "Come on, who's my pal?" And they start kind of playing a game of catch. Again, you'll see that Mickey is, again, screen left. And what you have here, if you take a look at these three things together, is what we call reversal of the line of action. And it's very strong. And the reason why you want to do this is because it builds contrast into your poses. If your poses are all the same, then your character isn't doing anything. And if your character's not doing anything, then your story's not doing anything. And why in the world would we want to watch what you're doing? So building this kind of reversal into the line of action is necessary so that your character has a sense of movement. It's a build-up and release of energy. I'm a big guy on thinking of animation in terms of energy. All motion, all story, anything that's accomplished is acquired by the build-up and release of energy. And it happens in narrative, it happens in character, it happens in internal combustion engines. We build up energy, we release the energy, we punch a piston, and we turn a cylinder, and we drive the car. Same thing here. We build an energy inside of a pose with a strong line of action one direction, and then we release that energy and we go in the opposite direction. Reversals are very important. Taking a look at another scene in Mickey's Twice Upon a Christmas, this is where Mickey gets his Christmas stuff knocked off of his car. You'll see that there's a very strong screen right lean over, like he's just afraid to touch anything because it's almost broken. And then this is just after a snowplow comes and rips away everything. And you'll see that he's got a completely opposite reaction. He's no longer leaning over into screen right, but now he's leaning up and back into screen left. And then after he realizes that not only is the stuff damaged, it's doubly destroyed, he goes into a kind of a slumping, down inside of himself pose. And that's, again, coming off of it. It kind of splits the difference between the two. So you go from an extreme right screen bend to an extreme left screen bend, and then he kind of settles down inside of himself down the middle. And here, a vertical choice is a good choice because straight up vertical lines of action are great for emphasis because they're so unnatural. We want to build this line of action and this energy into our poses, and so when we choose a time to emphasize something, we get rid of that thing. So it's like if you take a look at a blank piece of white paper and you put a black dot on it, what's the thing you look at? You look at the black dot because it's the thing that's different. And the thing that's different is that contrast that's going to pull our eye. So if we're always using strong lines of action, the time we want to emphasize a particular attitude or a moment is we'll choose that straight up and down vertical line of action as a way of emphasis to get the point across. Think of, an exclamation point is, a dot and a straight line off the top. You don't write an exclamation point at the end of every sentence. After a while, it starts getting tedious to read. So what you want to do is you want to savor it and use it where it makes the most sense. And so the vertical line of action is a great thing to use as an accent. Well, this is a good place for us to stop for this first video. There's a whole lot more on posing. We're going to get into that in the next couple of videos. We're going to start breaking it down. This one right here was really to kind of get the idea across of why posing is important, lay some ground rules and some basics as to what to look for in poses. Got into some details, but subsequent videos down the road are going to be even more detailed into the actual practical application of how to construct poses and things like that. But this is a good primer for us to get going. I hope this has been beneficial to you. I hope it's been everything you've expected and more. And if it hasn't, go ahead and shoot me an email. Tell me what you'd like to see. Maybe something different, maybe something better. Whatever it is, feedback is welcome. You can go ahead and email me. And thanks again for playing along. See ya.